Louis Rossmann is a YouTuber with 2.5 million subscribers, an audience that he's gained through being an internet activist. He's a staunch defender of things like right to repair of technological products, data privacy legislation, and the overall general enshittification of access to modern technology. But there's another major case that he advocates for, and that is that of AdBlockers. There are literally dozens of videos on his channel about it. And in this one, why I support AdBlockers and why you should too, he explains why. The problem is, while Rossman is evidently an intelligent guy who thinks quite deeply about the way that we exist on the modern internet, this is one of the most poorly thought out, terribly argued, and logically flawed videos that I have ever seen. I personally think that he has either failed to question his ideas at the most basic level or is intentionally misrepresenting the situation in order to pander to an audience who simply want to be told that they're justified in taking content for free. This is a movement that is incredibly harmful to small creators, and it is only getting worse. So today we're going to take a look at that video, and I'm going to show you exactly why Louis Rossmann is so wrong about AdBlockers. Let's get into it.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Hope you're having a lovely day. Today I'd like to answer a question from the audience about recent videos I've done where I suggest people utilize two plugins. One of them is Sponsor Block and the other one is uBlock Origin.
Okay, so in the first 3 minutes of this video, he talks about the ad blocker that he uses, the sponsor blocker that he uses, and just the fact that this is a case that he has been an advocate for a number of years. The actual argument starts here.
The reason that I think this is important is because there are three horsemen of the data privacy apocalypse: advertising, insurance, machine learning. Everybody wants to target their advertisements to the person that's most likely to buy that particular product. The only way to figure out who you're targeting is to have as much data on them as humanly possible. And when it comes to machine learning, a lot of companies now are trying to sneak in this shit through the back door where they can use my private data that I have behind lock and key in their application to train their machine learning.
So this sounds great, right? You don't want companies tracking your data, and so you block yourself from seeing the reason why they track your data, meaning that they can't sell you products. This chain of causality, if it existed in a vacuum, might work. But the problem is, it doesn't exist in a vacuum. And you're going to see time and time again with what Rossman argues that he fails to acknowledge that. On various different points in this debate, Rossman argues if we do X, Y will happen, while consistently ignoring consequences Z, A, B, and C that would also take place.
We can talk about data privacy laws and all this stuff until we're blue in the face, but what I think is really important is removing the underlying incentives. One of the three horsemen of the data privacy apocalypse are advertisements. So if people are not watching ads, they don't view ads, they don't click on ads, they don't make purchases based on ads, advertisements lose their value. When advertisements lose their value, collecting and sucking up your personal data no longer has any value.
So he says that data tracking is bad because companies want to know everything about you in order to sell you things. But he conveniently ignores the plethora of other reasons why third parties would want to track your data. For example, social media companies will want to know everything about you in order to optimize their algorithms to serve you content that you are most likely to watch. Or politicians are incentivized to purchase data about you because they want to know everything about you in order to secure your vote. Simply blocking ads would therefore not solve the problems that he claims it would. It does not remove the incentive structure.
So I like to deal with the root cause, the underlying concern. If advertisements have no value, then data collection has less value.
See, that's not true though, because his activism only starts at this point, the point at which him and his audience become personally inconvenienced. I find that telling. What he says is, this bad thing is part of the process that drives ads, and so we are therefore justified in blocking ads in order to stop the bad thing. To make a broad, sweeping argument like we are all justified in blocking ads, an industry that literally millions of people's incomes rely on, you need to do a lot more thinking about the external consequences that your claims would have. Now, I'm personally concerned with ad blockers on YouTube, and so my fear is for the small creators who rely on ad revenue as their primary source of income. So let's see what he has to say about that.
Now, when it comes to the monetary effect that this has on creators, yes, if you use uBlock, creators make less money. Here's why I don't care. This is a video I produced last year. I clicked on some random video from my list of shit and I got this. 200,000 views, $100.53. If you view one of my videos every single day for the next year, you could buy me a pack of Winterfresh gum and I've been given more value than if you watched every single ad.
Now, I'm not sure if he's intentionally picked these numbers in order to mislead his audience, or if just coincidentally he happens to have picked an incredibly low revenue video. But $100 for 200k views is a gross misrepresentation of how much YouTube pays. I have a monetized channel myself with over 100 monetized long form videos on it. My RPM, which is revenue per 1,000 views, is 9.78 Australian dollars. Multiply that by 200 to match Louis Rossmann's 200k view count, and that gets you 1,956 Australian dollars. That converts to 1,296 US dollars. Louis, are you really telling me that your numbers fairly represent how much YouTube pays creators when I apparently earn 13 times as much as you per view? Respectfully, that's bullshit. There are 3 things that could have caused this discrepancy between my earnings and Rossmann's earnings, and the reality is it's probably a mixture of all 3. Reason number 1. The video that he chose was about an attempt by the Malaysian government to domestically ban public DNS servers. This is a video that has a specific appeal to Malaysian viewers and will therefore predominantly attract Malaysian viewers. This is crucial because when it comes to the amount that YouTube pays per view, not every viewer is treated equally. A view that comes from a high average income country earns you more than a view from a low average income country. That's because advertisers pay more to advertise to, say, American consumers than they would to advertise to Malaysian consumers. So, given that most of his day-to-day viewers are likely to be Americans, it's very interesting that he happens to have chosen a video that specifically attracts Malaysians. Reason number 2. This particular video doesn't feature mid-roll ads. Mid-roll ads are the ads that play during the course of watching a video. Not having mid-roll ads is a choice that the creator makes while they're uploading the video. And this video would have earned more if mid-roll ads had been turned on. Now, this is a really important point because most of Rossmann's videos do feature mid-roll ads, including this very video about why he supports AdBlockers and all of the harm that he argues ads cause. So again, another convenient coincidence that his grand sample size of one video that he uses to represent the entirety of YouTube doesn't feature mid-roll ads. And reason number 3, as he said himself in this video, he has been an advocate for ad blockers for years. It completely stands to reason that his own audience have listened to his advice and use ad blockers more than most audiences on YouTube. So yeah, duh, no wonder your ad revenue is low. You have spent years telling your audience not to give you ad revenue. Again, Louis Rossmann is a clever guy. He has several million subscribers and has earned them by literally breaking down how the modern internet and modern technology works. There is just no way he doesn't recognize these 3 key points. And yet, that doesn't stop him from using what he must know is incredibly flawed evidence in order to paint a negative picture about the entire platform. To tell you the truth, I think this is a really key point in this video because it goes a really long way towards undermining his overall credibility. If I'm making the case that he simply tells his audience what they want to hear, my argument is massively strengthened by the fact that he's showing his audience these numbers which are incredibly skewed in their favor.
The amount of ads that you watch is not worth your time. Fundamentally, it's not worth it for me to take up hours of your time so that I could receive 12, 20 cents. That's not an amount of money that matters.
Okay, so as we've just established, his figure of 12 to 20 cents is massively below expected YouTube revenue. But that aside, this is a point at which I actually have to agree with what Rossmann is saying. But legitimate solutions exist where you can pay creators in order to avoid the inconvenience of watching ads. Whether it be YouTube Premium or for larger creators, a Patreon where they upload the content for free. These are legitimate avenues that already exist. Again, this would suggest that rather than actually caring about the
root cause, the underlying concern.
The purpose of this video is to tell his audience what they want to hear and legitimize them ignoring the harm that their own behavior causes.
If I did this as a job, if this was my way of life, what I would do is I would say, if you watch one video every single day of the year and you really like my stuff that much, give me a quarter, because I'm better off with you giving me a quarter a year than I am with you wasting your fucking life away on ads. This is not a good business model. It's not a business model that makes sense.
And this is the core of his argument. Louis Rossmann isn't advocating for a situation where creators earn no compensation for their labor. But the solution he's proposing is one of the most poorly thought out, economically absurd systems that I have ever seen. Lewis's argument views the creator economy like this. You have 3 players: the viewer, the platform, platform and Louis Rossman. Louis correctly argues that rather than going through the middleman, he and the viewer are better off if the viewer doesn't watch ads and instead pays him directly. For Louis, that very basic level of reasoning is enough for him to sincerely suggest this as an improved solution for everybody moving forward. Here are two massive reasons why that would fail, and spoiler alert, they are very obvious. 1. The creator economy is not encapsulated by Louis, the platform, and his viewers. Every viewer that Louis has likely also regularly watches 5 to 10 other content creators. Across their lifetime, they'll likely have watched one-off videos from literally hundreds of creators. Do you expect the viewer to pay for all of them? How often does a viewer have to watch a content creator in order for them to be expected to start paying? This is incredibly subjective, and as we'll touch on later, given that there is no incentive for the viewer to pay, it's going to be incredibly ineffective. Louis talked about incentives earlier in this video, but is now seemingly ignoring the fact that he's removing the incentive to pay. I guess it's only worth mentioning when it's convenient to him. And reason number 2, love it or hate it, YouTube as a platform provides a service. In Louis's proposed solution, they are cut out of the payment process entirely and are expected to continue to provide the same platform for free. At the risk of sounding like a bootlegger, platforms are a vital part of how we watch content online. And Rossman seems to have given absolutely zero consideration about their role in his plan. Which again to me begs the question, is he intentionally being disingenuous and leaving these things out? Because surely he hasn't built literally years of activism over this flimsy mechanism. And look, I've seen people say that it's a good thing if YouTube falls and a competitor will rise in its place that provides better user experience and less invasive ads. And cool, I don't disagree. I'm not here to defend YouTube. I'm here to defend creators. But the more that ad blockers become normalized, the less attractive it is for a competitor to come in. Why on earth would a new platform come in when users have shown consistently that they are not willing to make concessions in order to access content? That'd be a terrible business idea.
This is not a good business model. It's not a business model that makes sense.
Adblock users are actively making it a less attractive business proposition. And maybe you're watching this and thinking, no, if there was a similar competitor platform that existed but had less ads, I would not use ad blockers on that platform. And if you genuinely mean that, fair enough. I am very glad, and you make me more hopeful for the future of the creator economy. But I would argue that for the vast majority of current adblock users out there, now that they're used to a complimentary ad-free experience, they are not going to go back to watching any amount of ads simply out of the goodness of their own heart. There is no incentive for them to do so. It is simple. Most people use ad blockers because they don't want to watch ads. And so if YouTube does roll things back and feature less of those ads, they're simply going to move the goalposts in order to continue to justify their convenient truth. Rossman chooses to ignore this entirely. He refuses to acknowledge any potential negative impacts and instead presents a perfect world where everyone has enough money to pay every creator they watch and will because they're good Samaritans. That's his big plan. Honestly, if his optimism wasn't so utterly naive, it'd be charming.
Above all, we're not making content for the right reasons. If I get paid when you view the ad before you actually watch the video, then all I'm going to do is I'm going to make videos that make you click. If I only get paid after you've chosen whether or not I provided value, now I'm going to be making a different type of content. I'm going to be making content that's for my audience, not content that's going to play to the lowest common denominator in their brain, the part of your brain that's just curious as to why is that person making that face? My underlying point here is that the type of content that people create is going to be massively different if you're deciding to pay after you've gotten the value rather than paying before you've gotten the value.
This, once again, sounds great in theory, but it is debunked completely by an economic principle called the free rider theory. If a product is available for free and we can consume it for free without making any concessions ourselves, we are directly incentivized to try and avoid paying for it. This is like high school level economics, and he does not mention it once. Again, he very naively thinks that people will just pay for the product even when they have no reason to do so. Louis, it is hard enough to get a viewer to click a button below the video to subscribe for free when they've enjoyed your content. Knowing that, do you really think that YouTubers will be able to get those same viewers to go out of their way to pay for the content? In fact, a perfect illustration of free riders are adblock users themselves. If a viewer wants to avoid watching YouTube ads, they have two options. Option 1 is to go down the legitimate path by paying for YouTube Premium. You pay to avoid the inconvenience of watching ads in a way that ensures that the creator and the platform get paid for the services you're consuming. Option 2 is the free rider path. You install an ad blocker to get the same ad-free experience YouTube Premium offers, but you avoid paying, in so taking from the creator and the platform. And even the small minority of those adblock users who pay creators in other ways only pay 1 or 2 of them and don't pay the platform at all. But as any free rider does, they justify it by saying, my individual behavior won't impact the wider system. Unfortunately, that's not how morality works. Now, as for only paying when you find the video worthwhile, there is a reason why when you go to a supermarket and buy an apple, they don't say that you can eat the apple and pay them later if you think that it was worthwhile. That's because you're not paying for the satisfaction that the apple brings you, you're paying for the labor and capital of everyone involved with making that apple and delivering it to you. That's what it's like on YouTube. A content creator does the job of producing the video and the platform takes care of delivering it to you. And yet, here we have Louis Rossmann advocating for a system where viewers are directly incentivized to ensure that creators and the platform don't get paid for that service they provide. But where in the long term, that content will still somehow be made and still somehow be delivered. And this guy has the audacity to say that the current system we have makes no sense. It is baffling.
But if you had this type of revenue model, not only do you get rid of all these concerns about data privacy, but you also wind up with a community landscape with much better content.
This is a wild claim. He has just said in full sincerity that you could take the money out of YouTube and the content quality would go up. I cannot understand how, with a straight face, he says that the 2 consequences of removing ads are that data tracking stops and content quality goes up. That is insane. If the content that you enjoy watching is stuff like me at the zoo, then sure, because that's what content would go back to being. And to be clear, that's because the creator economy which he's proposing, which he confidently asserts would make creators better off, fails at the most basic economic analysis.
Look at these rates. This is a joke. I mean, to be clear, I understand why people have in-video sponsorships. If you're doing YouTube as a living, I have no fucking clue how you make this shit work. Like, I understand why people have in-video sponsorships. If these are the ad rates, you need it.
So here he talks about how vital sponsorships are for YouTubers to make a living and how difficult it is for them to do so. And yet, earlier in this video, he was saying this.
And there's also sponsor block, which takes those annoying segments in YouTube videos where somebody will talk about something completely unrelated to the topic of the fucking video, and it skips them.
I think this speaks volumes about how much Louis Rossmann cares about the consequences of his activism on creators. In this regard, what he cares about is avoiding watching annoying ads without having to pay to do so. At its heart, that's what this is all about.
This is not about screwing over content creators or fucking over everybody and not getting them paid.
You say that, Louis, but you've literally just spent 8.5 minutes advocating for a system that would absolutely cripple small creators while saying that it is somehow in their best interest for that to happen. So forgive me for finding that a little bit hard to believe. Look, Louis Rossmann, by his own admission, doesn't do YouTube as a job. He's a financially secure person, he owns his own businesses, and he happens to have 2.5 million subscribers. It is very easy from his position to be simply telling his audience what they want to hear at the expense of smaller creators. He is someone near the top of the food chain, advocating for a system that takes the income away from those at the bottom, essentially turning them into glorified buskers, offering a service that others consume and begging those consumers to be kind-hearted enough to pay them for it. Ads are not just this annoying inconvenience that exists in the modern internet age. They have been the means of funding free-to-air television for generations. And although they've evolved over the years, that primary function is not something that you can just ignore. If he tells his audience to give him a quarter instead of watching ads on his videos, fine. They're his videos. I don't really have a problem with him doing that. I mean, that's basically what Patreon is. But instead, he goes further than that and tells his audience that they should use ad blockers on everyone else's videos as well. To me, that is something that he has absolutely zero right to do, and something that other creators would be well within their rights to be very pissed off at him for. Louis, how do you think this whole platform works? We operate in a creator economy, and you're advocating for the income to be taken away from the vast majority of of creators in order to advance your effort of sticking it to the man. Good job, bro. Respectfully, do you not see how utterly reckless that is? Not to mention that your position of, quote,
The advertising industry, just go the fuck away.
seemingly lacks any consideration for the vast range of other flow-on effects outside of your one specific area of data privacy. I think a very good way of judging the morality of an action is to ask the question, if everyone else did this, would it be okay? Ad blockers fundamentally fail that test. While there was a time before YouTube monetization, the quality that exists on the platform today simply could not survive in a world where creators aren't getting paid for it. Some people would still post for fun, but thousands and thousands of creators would literally lose their career. I care about that, and I don't think he does. I've debated against the use of ad blockers for years, and I've heard every reason under the sun that people use them. Whether it be the data privacy concerns that Rossman has, or avoiding inappropriate ads, whatever reason you want. At the end of the day, every single one of them has boiled down to the individual not wanting to watch ads. And if you disagree with that, I would love to debate this further with you in the comments. But when it comes to saying that ad blockers on YouTube are justified so that ads can't be targeted towards you, what Rossman said in this video is reckless, irresponsible, and does a disservice to his fellow creators. Support the creators that you watch. Don't take their labor for free. Because the more and more people do, the less and less likely that content is still going to be there in years to come.